Hello, welcome to an all-new Marvelcast, Explosion Network's hub of all things Marvel. We're going to talk about everything MCU and beyond, from Avengers and Defenders to Clive Reston and Black Jack Tar. My name's Ashley Holby, the Explosion Network's resident half-Asian superhero. Joining me today, the astonishing Dylan Blight.
I was like that anytime you can use that as an intro. I'm the all-white person on this podcast. I don't know how I follow that up.
So today we're talking about Shang-Chi. If you notice, Kieran isn't available for this episode because COVID has locked down pretty much all of Victoria, especially Shepparton. Apologies to all the listeners in Victoria and New South Wales or anywhere that can't watch Shang-Chi. We will be jumping into spoilers probably as soon as we start getting into the film, so when
Save
you eventually wait 45 days when it comes to Disney Plus, and then listen to it. But if you live anywhere that's not riddled with COVID, go watch Shang-Chi. Hopefully you already have. So let's get into Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
You are a product of all who came before you. The legacy of your family. You are your mother. And whether you like it or not, you are also your father.
I told my men they wouldn't be able to kill you if they tried. Glad I was right.
You're just a criminal who murders people.
Be careful how you speak to me, boy.
I thought I could change my name. Start a new life. But I could never escape his shadow.
My son, you can't run from your past.
Directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, screenplay by Dave Callaham, Destin Daniel Cretton, Andrew Lanham, story by Dave Callaham and Destin Daniel Cretton, based on characters from Marvel Comics, starring Simu Liu, Awkwafina, Meng'er Zhang, Fala Chen, Florian Munteanu, Benedict Wong, Michelle Yeoh, and Tony Leung. Shang-Chi must confront the past he thought he left behind when he is drawn into the web of the mysterious Ten Rings organization. Dylan, what do you think of Shang-Chi?
I really, really liked it. It was a good one. It was coming off Black Widow, where I was like, it was alright. Just felt like a fucking Marvel movie. Go listen to that podcast. It was alright. It was just sort of wasn't the welcome to the next part of Marvel, here's some refreshing characters and places and whatever else. This isn't as good as Black Panther, but it gave me this similar sort of feeling where I kind of forgot I was watching a Marvel movie for a lot of it, which was really good, and that's what Black Panther did, where there's no connecting characters bar one, which doesn't really count because it's not like a main Marvel character or anything like that. So if you know who it is, then you get it, but it doesn't ruin the movie. But for the most part, from start to finish, it just feels like you're watching it literally could just be any martial arts movie, there's really nothing in here that screams MCU, other than, I guess there's two. Sorry, I forgot there's two. There's one character that's like a supporting MCU character, I guess, in Wong, and then you've got the cameo by Trevor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the Wong thing, but it's so quick until the after credits, which we'll get to. It doesn't really interfere with anything. But other than that, the whole movie just feels like it could just be a martial arts fantasy film. Especially by the time you get to the end, it just feels, it doesn't, even the last sequence, which is this big, special effects heavy sequence, even all of that doesn't feel like a big CGI fuckfest like Marvel movies usually do. Like, it kind of just worked for me, and it's just weird because
that was the question I was going to ask, because it was very CGI heavy.
It was CGI heavy, but I don't know. Like, it didn't go too long. It wasn't over the top. By the time the big monster comes out and the dragon. Well, hold on. I'm saying like from the time the big monster comes out.
Yeah.
Not when the little bat things or whatever start coming. When the big monster comes out, that whole sequence worked for me because it didn't go into it wasn't like a big sequence of it smashing things left, right, and center. Kind of, we just kind of get straight into the battle with the dragon and whatever else. And I don't know, it looked really good and it looked like nothing else I'd seen. And I'm like, I'm watching a fucking kaiju movie now. Like, we like switched up genres. It's kind of weird. But yeah, I think it's got all these really great. It's got this fantastic cast of which what's the actress who plays his sister? Who I was looking at before. I'm like, she's been in nothing.
She's been in nothing. I want to say Meng'er, Zhang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go. I'll let you do the make of that choice. Yeah.
I'm just basing it on Simu Leung tweeted out a bunch of pronunciations
to help.
Yeah, he tweeted something out like in June. So.
Oh well, I might need to look this up for future reference. But she's really, really good. And by the end of the movie, you're like, Simu Lee, right? Liu. He's like obviously the star and fantastic in it. But I kind of already came into it expecting that based on the trailers. It just was like, all right, I'm totally in for you as this role as Shang-Chi. But by the time you get introduced to his sister, I was like, cool. Now I want you to have your own thing. And then you get to the after credits and, they tease that or whatever else. And Awkwafina is like really, really good, of course. She's like the big comedic part, but I don't think the comedy ruins this movie at all. The fight scenes, I think, are some of the best in the MCU, full stop. And I'm a sucker for, like, when we get to that bus sequence early in the movie,
yeah,
I was like, oh boy. We got some choreographed fight scenes happening, everybody. You're out to please little old Dylan in the cinema right now. Like, there's that one shot where it's the one take. And I know, like, they can hide some because there is, like, CGI happening there and whatever else, and the bus does hide it or whatever. But he's, like, fighting right to left on from the bus, and he's, like, taking on several people or whatever else. Like, there's actual choreographed fights scenes happening. I was like, fuck me, what a breath of fresh air. Like, I would put this up there. I know it's hard to, like, Winter Soldier, sort of my top MCU fight scene movie. I would put this up there with that, at least, like, just coming off watching it. I wouldn't say if it's better or not, because I'd have to rewatch and
it's a bit too fresh.
Solely have to be like, which does have the better. But definitely watching this, I didn't get my usual fatigue thing of Marvel movies just having kind of bad fight scenes because they just don't really choreograph them and the actors want to perform them and they can't then have proper choreographed fights or whatever else. Like, so that really stood out. Music was good, shot really well, story was good, although I think it gets bogged down a little bit in the middle, has some pacing issues. I guess that's my only problem. It's sort of like hits a dip in the middle for a little bit there. Other than that, I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this as well. Like you said, action sequence, like the choreography, really impressive. I really enjoyed like the core cast. Similarly, Awkwafina have great chemistry and like you can see their like real good connection and that kind of thing. Then Tony Leung, amazing, like an interesting take on the character and like his motivations. We get the impression he's a bad guy, but then it turns out he's being kind of manipulated this entire time. By a force bigger than himself, even though he's a 1,000-year-old man. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, was he though? Because I don't think it was implied he was always being manipulated by 10 rings. Was it?
No. Just into opening the gate. So.
Yeah, for that part. I was about to say, he did bad stuff. Film, like, he was a bad guy. Like everything he did prior to meeting whatever the wife's name was, Lee or whatever. I think that's it, right? Wait. Everything he did prior to that, like that was him being a bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, I kind of felt like bad for him when he's just a guy going through grief. You know, the ongoing story of Phase 4.
Phase 4 of Marvel's grief. Yeah,
Yeah, it'll get you every time.
the new Thanos.
They do. Well, I think we might have got hints of the new Thanos in this film. So, but yeah, I thought,
Whoa.
well, like the next big thing. But yeah, I really, you know, I agree with you. I think the story kind of slowed down when they got to the village. It like came to a slow for a little bit until big what's his name? Tony Leung army came. Is that where you feel like the pacing kind of dropped off?
I would say between them getting to the Ten Rings facility through to him then showing back up, that I wouldn't say that whole part didn't have good moments, because of course that's when Trevor shows up and whatever else. But I just think from them getting there to that, 15, 20-ish minutes, that's where I'd say it has some pacing issues between that whole sequence or those that part of the film. That 20 minutes, I feel like needed some editing or something to sort of...
to be fair, it had been going like full pace until that time. So it needed to slow down eventually, but, you know, it kind of... It wasn't a smooth transition.
No.
But yeah, just even the small details of like... Of him like taking off his shoes when he gets into Awkwafina's parents' place, you know, and like their kind of friendship of oddly like coming across each other and like having like being together for the last 10 years. So it's implied that Shang-Chi is like 26, I guess. 24?
Yeah. Because I was trying to work out. He says, "Oh, I let you live your lives for 10 years or whatever." Yeah. I'm like, 10 years from when? Because he was out there for what? 6 years before his sister came out, right?
Yeah, his sister left, yeah.
So 10 years from when she was gone? Or else it was only 4 years. Because then it's implying that his sister... What the fuck is the sister's name again? So I can stop saying the sister. I can't forget.
Xiling.
She was only out for 4 years. So Xiling was only out for 4 years before she gets brought back there.
Xiling.
What?
Xiling.
Xiling. She was only out for 4 years. Or she was out for 10. So I'm going to choose to believe he meant 10 years from when she was out, or else I just don't think that I don't really buy Simu as 24. Like, no offense. Like, I'm not saying he looks like old, but he definitely looks at least closer to our age than he does 24.
You know, yeah, probably. But yeah, lots of interesting like scenes, like her, like Xiling, turning out to be the owner of the massive underground black dark web fight club, featuring our boy Bronny Chang, you know, and the Abomination Wong fight, which I think is implied was fixed. Is that
yes.
Yes.
So Wong's making some money on the side by training Abomination to fight against him.
You know, he still can't afford to pay for a tuna melt. It's like crazy. I guess they've got to make money somehow. You know, Doctor Strange isn't bringing in any cash, so. But yeah, I thought, you know, even that fight was pretty cool. Like between Shang-Chi and Xiling in the cage, and then when she full on knocks him out, very impressive. We all felt it was coming. Did you feel that was?
Oh yeah, you knew, as soon as she turned up, I was like, oh, I see where this scene's going.
And then we get that cool action sequence, like on the scaffolding.
Yeah,
that was very cool. The other thing I found interesting was obviously the story was kind of told through flashbacks a lot, which I felt worked. Which sometimes it feels like a cheap, like story easy plot device, whereas it felt kind of earned here.
I would say yes and no, because I did feel like it didn't work, but I also felt like I reached a point where I was noticing, like, subconsciously that scenes I wasn't hearing all of the dialogue, or they were withholding things, and my brain's like, all right, well, we're coming back to this scene then, you know, like, especially most prominently the scene where his mother goes out to fight those goons or whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't hear what she says to him on the steps there or whatever. And that my brain's like, all right, we're coming back to this scene later. You know, it doesn't ruin it, but I just felt like if I'm noticing at that point, it was because we'd done this already a couple times in the movie, where especially because the movie starts when you're hearing the tale of how mummy and daddy met, blah blah blah, like you're doing that whole thing. And they choose to not include how it goes from her kicking his ass to them actually getting together. You're like, okay, well, we're coming back to this. But that was fine at that time. But because they'd done it like once or twice, I think by the time we got to that moment, subconsciously, my brain just was like, all right, we're doing this again. We're coming back to this scene later. Yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds like it worked for me more than it did for you.
Yeah.
You know, I think it helps that the kid actors are pretty solid, you know, especially when after his mother died and Tony Leung like takes out that bar full of people. Pretty brutal, those rings, when you think about it. Like,
oh yeah, they're like shotguns. He shotguns that dude to the face, basically.
Yeah,
like
like his hand was behind the sun, but I'd have to assume it was pretty bloody. The ring.
I assume so.
Even the choreography for all those ring fights, very cool. I thought
they
found a way
do
to
a
make
good
it
job
visually
of
interesting.
Yeah, and you can always like understand where the rings are going and what they're doing. Like, yeah, it doesn't really just feel like they're just doing whatever they want or whatever. Like, it always sort of makes sense as far as magical rings go for making sense, but it does make sense in how they're working.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, it all culminates in, like you said, a massive CGI fest. I thought the village stuff, kind of felt like it was it slowed everything down to a crawl, like, because they're waiting like a day or whatever, a night for them to show up.
Gotta have that training sequence, man. Gotta have that.
I mean, they did have to have a fight between Simu and Michelle Yeoh, so if you're going to hire her, you've got to give her at least a showcase sequence where he just beats his ass, like throws him down with wind.
Yep. I'm gonna have Awkwafina learn how to
fire arrows.
To fire those arrows so well in literally like 12 hours.
Yeah.
One sequence.
Dragon scales, they're magic, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know where they're getting the dragon scales from, though.
I presume he offers them, whatever that dragon's name is.
They don't. It's not the same color as the dragon.
Maybe they are, though, like once they come off him, you know, maybe
it's under the fur.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you didn't mind the final giant kaiju battle?
No, I agree. The village stuff was all drew everything to a halt, and that could have definitely been sped up. But by the time that monster breaks out, my brain was definitely like, oh yeah, here we go. Fucking hell. My least favorite part of the movie. Here we are coming up. But once they jumped on the never-ending story over there, I was kind of completely into it.
It's like, I really enjoyed it. I can understand. My brother said he struggled to keep track of what was happening, just because like it's very CGI and there was water everywhere and.
Well, he did a whirlwind around him. They try and capture him at first, but then he gets more souls dropped to his mouth, and he like does a big fucking shockwave attack. And then he goes up, and then again fights some more. And then all of a sudden, she's about to fall off, and he's like, "Oh no, I'll let you go!" Fucking arrow, straight through the shirt. You're fucked, cunt. And then we keep going. We got some fighting, round him back up again. He traps him. Then he gets on those rings, and he like dives on him, and he shoots the rings down his throat. For some reason, the stupid idiot swallows him. What a fool! And then he somehow shoots up into the sky like he's fucking Goku, and does some sick ass move where he literally jawses that son of a bitch. Kaboom! Yeah, I can picture it all happening now. Come on, easy to understand.
Is it though? Also, the fights between Tony Leung and Simu, like, very cool. Like, I don't know how he suddenly was able to capture the 10 rings, but I don't really care. You know,
it's because he know, I don't know, magic spells. I don't know.
Yeah,
it was what his it's implied it's what his mother taught him, and how
the movements,
how
whatever.
she did that. I don't know. Like, if she just fluked it that one fight they had, and then she just remembered the exact moveset. But
Well,
I mean, it's very obvious because the way they edit it is he's like, oh, that's what she was showing me, how to steal the power of the rings or whatever.
It's implied that someone from that village was always meant to. Someone of that
Control the
lineage was
rings.
meant to have the rings eventually. So, yeah, you know, and then Tony dies, you know. I thought that was pretty sad. Like, after Simu chooses not to kill him, which I thought was interesting. Obviously, a character point that he brings up, like, right before, was he actually went and killed the person who killed his mother, which I was surprised they didn't show. And I think it might be something that potentially could be brought up in a sequel. Like, was that person someone important? Is someone going to come for Simu for revenge? You know?
They should have just done it like in Kill Bill Volume 1, where it just goes to an anime sequence so they can show the violence and stuff.
Maybe. No, but I could definitely see the whatever sequel it opens with him killing whoever. And like,
they could actually make it someone of prominence, or they could make it connected to someone of prominence. Maybe it's a bit too cliche
that, you know, it just starts a cycle of violence and revenge.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But, you know, that's always enjoyable. I thought it was interesting they kind of rewrote the history of the Mandarin again. Pretty much saying that the Mandarin... just writing off the Mandarin name entirely. Saying,
yeah, it's so good.
Such a good sequence.
Yeah. In like literally like under 60 seconds, they completely fix everything.
It's like the most menacing thing they could come up with is a piece of fruit. So good. How'd you feel about Trevor in this film? Ben Kingsley coming back. Still a mad Liverpool fan, even though...
Yeah. Well, quickly before that, I was going to say that the funniest thing about that whole sequence is I think it also says something about like the fact that they called the character the Mandarin in the first place in the comics, because you could even take that line and be like, oh, the most menacing name they could come up with was the name of fruit. And that's what they did, naming the character
like 60, 70 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it seems very meta, but you can sort of take it that way as well. But yeah, that whole sequence was great. And then Trevor was great. We got way more Ben Kingsley in this than I thought we would. Like, I expected a cameo. I almost would have expected it as a 2-second cameo or the very final after credit scene or something like that is kind of what I went into the movie thinking it was going to be. Not that he would sort of be tagging along for half the movie. But he was very funny, and I don't think any of his comedy ruined the movie. It kind of worked. I know he just fitted in nicely there from the second he shows up and is explaining everything. And the best part of it is to me the fact that thing, whatever his short film thing was, which was on was that on Thor: The Dark World or something? I think it was on.
I don't know. I think it
was that. It was on whatever the movie was after Iron Man 3,
obviously. So probably
whatever the next. Yeah. So whatever was after that was where it was tagged onto, and it was like the last of those Marvel shorts or whatever they did. But at the end of that, you do hear an explosion and whatever else, and it's implied that the real Mandarin or whatever was the one coming to kill him or break him out or whatever. And the fact that it's been like 10 years to get a payoff for that one shot sequence, which was already, that one shot was basically done for all the people complaining about
the Mandarin.
him and the Mandarin and all that sort of stuff. But the other thing that's just dumb is they do that because all these, I'll say comic book fans in quotation marks, go online and they're like, "He's ruined the Mandarin, blah, 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 blah." You know, those same fuckboys are going to complain about this because they're still not getting the stereotyped racist version of the character that they want so dearly. Which is the
I don't know. I'll be optimistic and say they don't really care because Tony Leung's so good in this.
It was already getting downrated for some reason. I saw like it was getting review bombed, and I can't figure out why. I don't know if I've missed something.
DC
but it was already
fanboys,
getting.
You know,
I
saw Snyder first trending again. So
oh, good, okay, yeah, because it's already getting like review bombed on places I've seen. I'm like, why? Did one of the stars of the movie say something like, "Get your COVID shots" or something outlandish? like what's the deal? Yeah, I know. Yeah, Trevor's really good, and that little pet pig thing or whatever. That thing, everyone like freaks out or whatever. That picture. But the moment they're like, what is that? And he's like, what's what? And they're like, what's that thing? He's like, oh, you can see it too. Thank God, it's not just in my head. It's so funny. Just the fact he's translating it for this whole time or whatever else. Yeah, so good.
Very good. And then leads them in the Razor Fist car, through the forest, and then which was a cool visual.
That was, yes. Better forest sequence in this than the whole of the Jungle Cruise movie. Then his last moment, which is my whole cinema loved that. That was quite funny for everyone. Just that pig thing or whatever walks. What was that thing's name? It had a name. I can't remember. What it was. I can't remember. Yeah. But like the fact it just walks up and you're like, oh no. And it's like, shh, I'm playing. I'm acting, everyone. Like, well, it's a performance. And the fact it just drops dead on its back like a fucking dog, plays dead. Yeah, it's good. It's quite funny.
And he's very impressed by.
Yeah, he's very impressed with the skills.
And then him saying, he got into acting because he saw Planet of the Apes.
No.
I didn't understand that it weren't actual monkeys. Yeah, some of the comedy in this film was pretty great, between Awkwafina and living all her lines and stuff. And then the callback to going to karaoke again,
really right at the end, yeah.
Right at the end. Anything else you wanted to talk about before we jump into the after credit stuff?
This is the big question. It's going to be asked a lot in the coming weeks as it comes out. And you're going to see this question pop up in all the headlines, so we might as well ask it now. Does Shang-Chi do for Asian representation that Black Panther did for black representation?
I think it will to a certain audience. I don't think the Asian community is as vocal as the black community. It's like
different
percentage.
It's a quieter culture.
No, like obviously, like the demographic is bigger in America, and there's a lot more notable people and larger, more high profile people.
Yeah, I was gonna say the other thing is that's weird is I don't really white dude's view on both different culture things or whatever. But you're watching Black Panther and you get it embodies, I guess, current day Black American African American culture as well as African culture from many different tribes and whatever else. That's the key thing. And whereas this film,
this
I don't
doesn't
really,
really explore any culture whatsoever. It's just
more
a setting. It's a place they visit.
Yeah,
cool place.
And I guess with the dragon and whatever else, you're like Chinese. Yeah, I guess that's the extent of it. I don't really get that same sort of multi-cultural thing or whatever else. I guess there's an element of you get especially at the start, you do get the element of one character being able to speak multiple languages or whatever, and then you've got Awkwafina's. Is Awkwafina? It is.
Awkwafina.
Yeah. Fucking doubted myself there for a second, but her just having the whole thing where she only can speak English or whatever. So you get the whole what do you call that?
She's a second generation.
Yeah, that's sort the same sort of thing that they explore in the Farewell or whatever. I guess. Yeah,
except she could speak Chinese in there
to a degree, but it explores that same sort of
generational thing. Yeah,
generational thing. You get some of that, but then when you get to the end of the movie, there's not multiple things. It is more just big dragon. So my brain just goes Chinese culture. It doesn't have the same sort of.
Yeah. Also, shout out to all those cool mystical creatures. almost thought they full on put like a Ninetales in the film.
I
assume.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, that fucking thing when I saw it, I was like, they're fucking Pokemon. There's Pokemon now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they? Surely there's got to be a Pokemon with no face, right?
There will be now.
And they'll be upset that doesn't have a
Yeah,
face.
Ditto. Maybe. I don't know, technically.
I mean, Ditto has a face.
Kind of.
Well, Dylan, how about you give us the most marvelous moment from this film?
Fuck. I forgot that's a question now, to be honest. Oh, do you have one while I think?
I mean, it's got to be the bus scene. Like, it kind of sets up the whole movie. And, like, very impressive. You know, on top, adds the comedy on top with the guy on the live stream talking up. You know, I used to take karate, so I'm going to try my best. Give you a breakdown of this fight, you know? Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another one, but yeah, I'll probably go to bus scene as well. I already mentioned it as well. I didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was my favorite action scene for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
it was really well put together. There's a really good piece of music that plays there as well, like fucking electronic music or whatever.
You know? And then he breaks the bus in half to save the day.
Cool. Good day we got there.
I also appreciated when they decide to finally team up to take out the Soul Demons. Razorfist's like, no, we're not going to team up, and then the bad guy who'd been kicking
everyone's ass,
who'd been training similarly his entire life, Shang-Chi his entire life, gets his soul sucked out straight away. And he swaps sides real quick, and then he breaks off one of the spears and sticks it in. I don't know how his razor works, but, you know,
I don't know.
Interchangeable.
By the way, I was going to say, because we just recorded a episode about What If prior to this. So, spoilers for What If episode 4. But this has a thing where people are like sucking souls out and feeding them to. And then Doctor Strange in that episode has a thing where he's basically like eating the souls of these creatures, dark monster creatures, to get stronger. So I'm like, is this thing a dark monster? Like, is this similar sort of thing? Is that what we're saying? I don't know. Maybe it's just because I watched them closely together. I'm like linking stuff that's not actually linked.
Maybe. Yeah. So it's after credit scenes. Obviously, we have the film ends with them talking to their old high school friend that they talked to at the start of the film, who told them off for like not living up to the potential,
being boring,
you know, and then recount the entire thing, and you know doesn't believe them until Wong shows up, and they walk through over to wherever Wong's library is. After credit scene, them kind of examining the 10 rings, and having Bruce Banner, important Bruce Banner, Captain Marvel, also like give their opinions on the 10 rings, and like them coming up with nothing. And apparently, since Shang-Chi has had activated them or used them for the first time, there'd be some sort of signal dropping out of them somehow to somewhere. What do you think that means?
I have no clue. So feel free to give me your thing, because I literally have no idea.
Yeah. I don't know either. I'm guessing it's got something to do with the Eternals, maybe, seeing as that's the next thing down the road. Or is it a signal to my favorite big bad, Galactus? You know?
How would it connect to Galactus? As much as I'd love to say Galactus,
it's a signal that the world's ready to be sucked up. The world's ready to be eaten. Enough energy. Or something, I don't know.
If you want, so a bad guy uses it for thousands of years or whatever, the signal doesn't go off. A good guy uses it once, the signal goes off.
Yeah.
That's basically what it boils down to, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just,
I don't know. I'm just
like
throwing out theories.
Simple comic book thing where it's like a good guy uses something and all of a sudden it changes.
It's like, nah, that can't be it. Can't stand that.
Yeah. Or is it
good
the
guy
fact
doing stuff?
They got shoved down a giant dark demon monster's throat that activated the signal. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously important and it's a tease for something. It was a bigger tease for something that I thought was going to be getting in this movie, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then there's
this
some other things.
This definitely feels like the start of Phase 4.
Yeah. Like this feels like something compared to Black
I guess
Widow.
the first film, so.
Yeah. Like this felt like a proper tease, because that's the other thing, like Black Widow, one after credit scene, they have a proper credit sequence. And we talked about that, how it felt like Iron Man 1, you know, like it doesn't have a flashy title sequence or whatever. And then this film, back to flashy title scene, mid credits, after credits, full credits, then you've got another credit. Like this is back to normal. So Black Widow just feels like a very weird sort of blimp on the radar movie. And this does feel like the proper start to Phase 4.
Yeah.
There are some other things there too. Like we'll talk about Bruce Banner having a broken arm.
Well, Bruce Banner being Bruce Banner for a start.
Well, that too,
last time we saw him, he was still the Hulk.
Yeah. Professor Hulk.
I'd have to assume he's like shrunk himself back to heal properly after, you know, he messed up his arm, snapping his fingers, the Infinity Gauntlet. You know, that would be my gut reaction. It also, I guess, it makes it easier for him to show up in She-Hulk. You know, they don't have to pay for the Hulk. They just have Mark Ruffalo again. So I thought that was an interesting like tidbit or like little piece of information that maybe the general person wouldn't notice. You know, seeing it's been so long. But
well, I hope they explain it because I guess in Endgame they never really specifically say that he was trapped. It's just that him and Hulk, he has that quick.
But
it's
something he'd been trying to do over those 5 years. Like,
yeah, he's like, we're living in unison now. Blah 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 blah. It's not like I got stuck. So I guess he could choose to go back, and I mean, it's not like they have to have a big moment, but they at least sold like a line of, "Oh, the big guy agreed it was better if I take over for a while," or you know, some thing. Yeah,
I don't know, but yeah, that I assume that's why his arm's all messed up, still from healing from the Infinity Gauntlet thing. If he can heal.
That would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, and we got Carol with her normal hair. So I guess they're not doing the short mohawk thing.
They're just changing up all the time. I don't know, I can't keep up.
Yeah. I don't know if that uniform looks different or anything, but yeah. No, I was surprised that she showed up, so I'm like, whoa, that's like unexpected.
I don't know. I guess placing her there helps set
Remind
up
you that
audience going forward. That that plus her position within the group. I was thinking, like having her show up, having the fact that she was called to be asked, like she's core
like
leadership of the team now, of the Avengers. Yeah,
interesting that Wong was like in charge there. You know, I guess Wong is Wong an Avenger.
Wong's like a mediator, I guess, between different parties or whatever, but I did like how he basically gives this speech, gets to give the whole, your life will never be forever, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't say you're the part of Avengers now, but he's like, welcome to the fucking MCU, motherfuckers. Like,
yeah, it's to the characters and to
the audience.
No, do like the
actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actors. Yeah, your life will never be so. And then cut to them all singing. Yeah.
Yeah, cut to Hotel California. Good times. And then the very end credit scene. We get Xiling, who we've been told went back to dismantle the 10 Rings. Nah, she's the new leader of the 10 Rings. First thing she does, diversity, equal, feminist, equality across the board. And the end credits, like the final shot, is not like Shang-Chi will return; it's the 10 Rings will return.
Yeah, which I think, because the other thing is, like, you watch it, you know he's going to be back. You don't really need a Shang-Chi will be back. You're like, of course he'll be back. Like, that's kind of where we're going. So I think having the 10 Rings will be back. To me, that was Disney Plus series.
Maybe, like, they could obviously they can be like antagonists for anybody now potentially.
I would honestly like to see a Disney Plus series for them. I feel like that's where the Disney Plus thing would work really well for that sort of, like, you're not going to give that character and like the 10 Rings themselves a whole movie. And I don't want to just see them chucked in with someone else's movie. But how do I get her to... What's the character name again? Xiling. How do I get her to star in her own thing? It's Disney Plus. She ain't getting a movie, but she can get a Disney Plus. Yeah. And that's not even a negative at these days, because the Disney Plus things are basically just 6-hour movies. So...
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting. Obviously, we're getting some interesting factions kind of brewing up. You know, of course, we had Hydra for the longest time. Now we've got 10 Rings. We've got whatever team Louis Dreyfus putting together.
Yeah.
You know?
And you've got the Space Shield. What the fuck they're called? From One Division. Who are they working for?
Sword.
Sword, yeah. So you got Sword, you got 10 Rings, and you've got Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Secret Avengers.
Yeah, and you still got the Skrulls to show up and all sorts of stuff coming forward. So it's like it's going to be a lot to keep track of, and you know anybody can show up in anything at this point. So I guess kind of makes things interesting. All right. Anything else you want to talk about in credits things? I like that they brought Rennie Cheng back to be part of her new 10 Rings crew. Very important.
Another reason I would like that Disney Plus show is because I just get Disney Plus. Rennie Cheng.
Oh man, him like introducing him to the fight fit was a joy to watch. Even just him saying, telling Awkwafina stuff, and her saying her Chinese is no good, and he says, "I can talk the ABCs."
Yeah.
So good. All right. Let us know what you thought of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings on Twitter by going to explosion.com/Twitter or jump to our Discord at explosion.com/Discord. Give us a review for all new Marvelcasts on Podchaser or Apple Podcasts, or let people know about the show. And if you like this episode and thought it was worth $1, head on over to our Ko-fi page at explosionnetwork.com/support. Thank you very much for listening, and join us next time for another all new Marvelcast.